Greetings, brothers and sisters. So I want to show you a series of clips. I rewatched the movie Rollerball from 1974 when I was 10 years old, and it had a lot of prophecy in it that I didn't realize. I've seen the movie twice. Once when I was a kid, maybe a couple times. I don't know, when I was younger, and then maybe somewhat more recent, like 20 years ago. I mean, not recent, but later on. I saw maybe bits and pieces of it. I don't remember. But then I just decided to watch the whole thing because sometimes these old science fiction movies have some things in it, right? And this one did quite a bit. Uh, so we'll get to that in just a moment. But first, I want to show you a clip. My wife and I watched this series on Peacock called The Undeclared War. And it's god awful. It's a horrible TV show. Cheesy, it's an English made TV show, a low budget. But the reason we watched it is that it was about a cyber war between Britain and Russia. In the movie, Russia and Putin are attacking Britain with a cyber war, and they're outsmarting Britain at every turn, and all the things that we know that America also does, and all of these countries do. They're blaming just on Russia and Putin in a way that's just goofy and stupid. But there's one very telling scene. This is probably the only redeeming part of the series. Is there's an English woman who works for Russia, and what would be called Russia today, but it's in Britain, and they are putting out propaganda against Britain, and they bring in a Russian girl who was sort of a dissident, but she's sent out as a reporter. And there's a lot of deep fake stuff and a lot of, there's things that are confirmational in the show. But the show just sort of breaks down. It has all the liberal woke kind of stuff in it. I mean, it's pretty bad. But here's the very telling scene. I'll show you that here first.
Us to provoke on the ground. If we've attracted the right kind of people, it'll kick off of its own accord.
So it's all made up, the whole thing.
Well, I prefer managed.
But what's the point of reporting something that's so obviously fake news?
Look, you need to forget all your previous experience as a journalist, okay? Whether it's faked isn't the point. I mean, everything that's reported is fake, one way or another. We know that people won't believe it. It probably contradicts what we said yesterday. It doesn't matter. The point is to get people used to the idea that everything's a lie, that there is no truth. And once they accept that, well, biggest liar wins.
It's funny because my wife and I were kind of talking during the show, and she noticed this, and we rewinded it and watched it. I would have missed it otherwise because the show was that bad. And like I said, they make it a one-sided type situation where, Russia today and Putin are the only ones who are putting out disinformation, and they're so much better at hacking and all these things. And Russia's trying to provoke a war with America by provoking a war with Britain. And since Britain and America are in the, whatever it's called, NATO, that America will be forced to go into World War III with Russia, and that Russia's the one provoking this, right? When clearly the whole Ukrainian war, the stated reason for it from Putin is they didn't want the Ukraine to join NATO because if there was any conflict between them and the Ukraine in the future, it would mean World War III, right? So it's just, blatant just lies, right? Propaganda lies. Not that Russia's great or Putin's great, but just all of it. And so it's pretty bad. But it's like what they said here. They just, the biggest liar wins. And I've talked about this here quite a bit, that, there's just so much disinformation out there. And the truth community has been compromised so much by governmental, they have these bot wars, right? They have Twitter farm and these things. And, they have these these disinformation agent groups on both sides putting out these, tweets and engaging on social media. And so there's that, but then there's just stupidity among the populace who just post stupid stuff. And, so everything's just questionable. Like I say all the time, people are like, why don't you say this? Why don't you say that? I'm like, because, it's all just a big lie. It's the show. It's the beast, right? Everything's a big, it's all deception. And so you can't really believe anything. And that's, like if somebody saw real flying saucers or aliens, there'd be people on there saying, that's a hoax or whatever it is. And so you never really could trust anything. And the biggest liar wins. And so, it's accurate. They always tell you a little bit of the truth. And then, my wife and I watched the show Fringe maybe about 6 months ago. And there was a great little clip from there. I'll play that here.
Casualty as hundreds miraculously escaped what federal authorities are calling an unscheduled controlled demolition at the Brayson Place Hotel.
Conspiracy nuts are going to have a field day.
You'd be surprised what you can make the general public believe.
Yeah, not really. I'm not surprised at all. So there's that, right? And there's this element of telling the truth. And you could, there could be hundreds or thousands of clips like this that I could put in here where they just tell you and everybody who's watching it's some kind of, Freemasonic thing that they have to do or whatever it is. Like they have to tell you the truth somehow. They just always do. And, in a way that it can be easily denied. Oh, that's a show. That's not, that's whatever it is. But let's get into Rollerball here. I got some clips I want to go through, but let's watch the trailer first. In the not too distant future, the wars will no longer exist, but there will be Rollerball, this cool font. They use this futuristic font, right? So I showed a bunch of the trailer here. I uploaded this video yesterday. And it took forever to upload. I don't know. We had weird internet speeds or whatever was going on. So it didn't upload and I went to bed and it uploaded overnight. And then they copyrighted me on the trailer from a movie a trailer that's 50 years old. So I think it's probably even the public debate. I don't even understand. But I took the trailer out because you'll see a bunch of clips here. And they were kind of redundant anyway. There's one clip I want to show you that I didn't have from the movie, where the guy says it's not a game. It's kind of funny. But everything else I have taken out here. In terms of the trailer, and I'm re-uploading this video. It should have been up yesterday, and I got a bunch of other clips to put up too. Short videos, but here it is.
Game! This wasn't meant to be a game!
This wasn't meant to be a game. So yeah, let's get into the scenes here. Okay, so let's start here. The movie begins with the first Rollerball game.
The controller indicates that he is ready, and our 30 Multivision cameras will be bringing you all the speed, thrills, and excitement of this critical game.
So this is 1974. And at that time, my family still had a black and white TV, I believe. We had 3 channels, and you had to get up to change the channel. There might have been some remote controls out there that rich people had, right? But not my family. So, and this movie's set in 2018, which is 5 years ago. And so they have this multimedia, digital, all these cameras, all this stuff, right? Which for that time was, astounding. Something that was not really believable.
Ladies and gentlemen, our corporate anthem.
That's right, you heard it. It's the corporate anthem, right? So they're not singing the national anthem. In 2018, the world is run by corporations. We'll get into that. There's there's an explanation that I don't have to do it myself, as explained several times. And this was the kind of movie they would make in 1975. They play the corporate anthem twice, like the whole thing. Like, I don't listen to the national anthem of a live game that I'm going to watch. But they played this corporate anthem twice in this movie. So he's number 6, right? The character Jonathan, which you'll see him throughout the movie, James Caan. Number 6, which of course is, number 6. Also, they wear leathered pants. And it looks more like a S&M outfit than an athletic uniform. Okay, so they win the game, and the next scene's in the locker room.
Sweet dreams, Moonpie.
The villain was in a show, I think it was called Paper Chase or movie, famous for that role. This is back in those days. He reeks of elitism and has sort of a British accent, but they're passing out these pills, very much like Soma pills, and they have various kinds, but they're pill poppers, right? All of them,
It's a bad habit you got there. You know what that habit will make you dream, Moonpie? You'll dream you're an executive. You'll have your hands on all the controls, and you'll wear a gray suit, and you'll make decisions. But you know what, Moonpie? You know what those executives dream about out there, behind their desks? They dream they're great rollerballers. Yeah. They dream they're Jonathan. They have muscles. They bash in faces.
So, you get the idea that there's this sort of elitist class here, right? Where there's the people who are the corporate executives. It is, a lot of this stuff has actually happened in, similar ways to what the movie's predicting. There's also sort of these homoerotic aspect to the movie.
Come in, Jonathan. Keep silence with me for a minute, won't you?
So now he meets with the corporate CEO and the owner of the team. He's one of the controllers, one of the people who makes decisions here. And he's going to tell, what's going on with the world.
I cut my finger. Sorry.
You've had an amazing career, John. You know how proud we are of the Houston team and what we think of you at Energy. Now, there are executives who want you out.
Sure.
You've had 10 years in this game, John. Longer than anyone ever.
The movie's conflict is basically this guy, the conflict of the movie is this guy, Jonathan E. He doesn't have a last name, and I guess they don't have him in the future, which must get confusing. Right? But he doesn't want to retire, and the corporate powers that be are trying to force him to retire. And that's the whole simplistic, aspect of the plot line of this movie. And also in this first scene, I'm like, who does this guy remind me of? And so James Caan is attempting to do a Southern accent. He's supposed to be in Houston, have a Texas accent, which is weird. And he just sort of mumbles. And I realized he's Adam Sandler. Like he was Adam Sandler before Adam Sandler existed.
Retire? How can I do that?
On your special program. There are some who feel that this program should now be used to announce your retirement.
Who wants that?
And this special was first planned by us here at Energy. We saw it as a good thing. Now the executive directorate wants a change. The program is scheduled, the whole world is waiting for it. So this does seem perfect time.
Your team, they depend on me.
Jonathan, let's think this through together.
There's a lot of Freemasonic and other symbolism here. I used to cover that so much, and I forgot a bunch about it. I don't really care about it, but there's a ton of this in this movie. And he's, total Sandler.
Our game serves us as a definite social purpose. Nations are bankrupt, gone. None of that tribal warfare anymore. Even the corporate wars are a thing of the past.
So this movie in 1975 predicted that by 2018, that the world would be run by corporations. So that's almost, I guess it's 42 years ago, at least in terms of 2018, right? And and there's other things here as well.
Know that.
So now we have the majors and their executives. Transport, food, communication, housing, luxury, energy. A few of us making decisions on a global basis for the common good.
One world corporate government, right? This is globalization, and
Team is a unit. It plays with certain rhythms.
So does an executive team, Jonathan. Now everyone has all the comforts, you know that. No poverty, no sickness, no needs, and many luxuries which you enjoy, just as if you were in the executive class. Corporate society takes care of everything. And all it asks of anyone, or has ever asked of anyone ever, is not to interfere with management decisions.
So there's an executive class where you'll see. He's going to talk about this in a moment. And, you just don't mess with the executive class when they make a decision. They tell you to do something, you do it. And everyone else is, everyone's content taking their pills, and watching their rollerball.
I don't mean to resist. I'm just trying to understand.
This is for your own benefit. You must know that, Jonathan. All decisions concerning you are.
Well, I lost Ella. The corporation took my wife away because an executive wanted her.
I'm not going to review all that again. It was before I took over here, and I had nothing to do with it. From what I hear, your wife wanted to leave herself.
And that's the other part here, because this guy Jonathan is in love with this woman, sort of cyber stalking her, which we'll talk about. We'll show you more in a bit. And some corporate executive wanted her, so she had to leave him, and she went with the corporate executive, and he's never gotten over it. And that causes him to say F you when they want him to quit.
So, now you're going to retire. That shouldn't be too hard for you. It's a stupid game after all. Awful game. You ought to be glad to be out of it.
I don't know, Mr. Bartholomew. I just don't. I realize you had nothing to do with Ella leaving me.
Jonathan,
But, you're right. I had to do it. I ought to be perfectly happy to do what you say.
Take your time. Take a few days. Just come through a game, you're tired. Go to your ranch, but think about it. And understand it. Do understand it.
He hands him back the cloth with the blood on it. There's some sort of sacrificial thing there.
Because I don't understand your resistance. I don't think anyone else will either.
Sent me this notice, said I had to appear at the center personally.
That's right. This is our circulation unit. You can make your choice here or by catalog. There must be some mistake. The books you've ordered are classified and have been transcribed and summarized.
Well, who summarized it?
I suppose the computer summarized them.
What'd you need books for? I just want to study up on some things.
You could go to the computer center where the real librarians transcribe the books, but we have all the edited versions in our catalog. Anything I think you'd want.
Well, I see then. This is not a library, and you're really not a librarian.
I'm only a clerk, that's right. I'm sorry about it, really.
And the books are really in computer banks being summarized. Where is that?
Well, there's a computer bank in Washington. The biggest is in Geneva. That's a nice place to visit.
Yeah.
I guess that's where all the books are now.
Yeah, well, thank you.
And so nobody reads. They're basically illiterate. They're uneducated, immature, and childish, which I'll show you in a bit. And all the books are on computers. Of course, they didn't. Back in 1975, like I saw my first computer in 1980 something, right? when I was in high school. And it was the size of a refrigerator, and it didn't do anything. Like it wasn't as good a computer as our phones are now, right? And so there wasn't much knowledge about computers back then, but they predicted all the books would be on computers, and we'll see some AI technology glitching out. I mean, there's lots of things here that they got right, and that, nobody's reading, and the books have been edited for your protection, and to get to the books, you would have to go to these databases. Of course, they didn't know everyone was going to have a computer in their home, but they got a lot right here.
It's not that exactly.
Yeah, but books, Jonathan? I mean, anything you want to know, you could hire yourself a corporate teacher, see? I mean, you could call somebody out, use your privilege card.
His white privilege card. His, athlete privilege card. Of course, there's a classes. There's various classes here. But they talk about privileges quite a bit. The word privilege is used often throughout the movie.
That's the uniform of the house.
So they send him over a variety of women. So they have these women who are kind of like escorts, and they take him away and send him in, and he gets tired of them, sends him back. But he's in love with this model named Maud Adams, who was, I remember her name. I mentioned it to my wife, her name to my wife, somebody we knew, right? Someone famous. I don't know what else she was in. You'll see her. She's going to appear at the end of the movie. But they sent her a model that looks like Maud Adams because they know he's bumming about his wife being taken by a corporate executive. And he's watching these videos constantly of Maud Adams, his original wife, right?
I'm Daphne.
Yeah, that figures. It's all right. Here, where are these two?
These we did in slow motion to show the impact of your blows on opposing players. We want you to approve the sequences.
It's all fine with me. Anything. I really don't see why I'm needed here.
Well, the energy people want you to be satisfied. There now, isn't that a marvelous shot?
Sure.
I'm a stat freak myself. Isn't that perverse?
You see his number 6 a lot throughout the movie. And so what he's talking about, this guy's talking about analytics, and he's going to go through some of the analytics. And that's interesting in itself. So that's predicting the future, but also there's some symbolism here as well. And, he's got his new whore there. And he's not digging her, and she's pressuring him. You'll see that in a moment, too, as well. I'm not sure if this character is AI or is an actual person, but all the authority figures seem to have a British accent, right? All the people in the executive class.
Got anything I can take?
Just take one. Statistics, eh?
Yes, the greatest number of points scored in a single game, 18.
That's 3 6s, right? And in all in the games in this that you see, it's like hockey. They score a couple of points, right? So 18 seems kind of extravagant. It's 666, right?
The highest velocity of a ball when actually fielded by a skater, 120 miles per hour. Most depth. Please, don't do that.
Oh.
Most deaths, 9. Rome versus Pittsburgh, December last year.
Of course, 9 is a significant number. It's going to come up again at the end where there's a kind of a now. I'll talk about that later. But 9, of course, is a significant number in the future and even, in the present. And he killed 9 people in one game, right? And this guy's celebrating it.
The greatest number of players and substitutes put out of action by a single player in a single game, 13. A world record, courtesy of your dear self. There have been studies, of stat freaks in rollerball. Well, some go to the track, but they never take their eyes off the big board.
What's this?
As for myself, I've always wondered if a rollerball player sees himself as a class apart.
Hello. Pause. I'm Jonathan E. Smile. would like. This for me?
Very astute, yes. It's your retirement announcement. Your special is already scheduled and announced all over the world.
It's scheduled. So it's very British, right? All these people who are influential have a British accent.
You're supposed to read this as part of the program.
What sort of pill did you give me?
Pure aphrodisiac, Daff. Enjoy yourself, dear.
Can we finish up there and go?
You are being recorded. If
You a
you
little
just
woozy, are you?
try to read the announcement.
All right. Why don't you read the...
Why you want that, do you?
He gave her a pill that's some sort of aphrodisiac, and she wants him to read his retirement speech because the corporation has sent her there, and he's bummed because, well, you'll hear it from the horse's mouth here.
You are making things very difficult.
How many assignments you been on, Daff? I know you're good at what you're good at, so you must have been around some. A lot of girls have stayed with me, like you know that. Never seem to mind. But odd thoughts I've had about you, Daff, odd thoughts. Wondered if you'd been briefed on me.
I'm going to have to ask you to read.
Yeah, a lot of things occur to me, Daff, a lot of things. A lot of things occur to you.
He ends up sort of slapping her around later on. There's a lot of things that you wouldn't see so much in a modern-day movie, or I guess you would. And then there's this ecstasy-based party. You can see they're just passing out these pills where they show his film. And this is where you get a sense, I mean, you can see it all along, but how immature and how idiocracy this thing is in terms of what they think people in 2018 are going to be like. So they have these weird touching rituals, and then so it seems like kind of an ecstasy party. Like I don't know. That came out after I was in college. So I don't know about rages or ecstasy so much, but that's what I assume it's like. The whole party's like that, right? And, just a lot of stupidity, a lot of immaturity. So they're watching this tribute to Jonathan where he's supposed to retire. And it's the only player who ever has gotten this because the players are supposed to be expendable. This is the point of the movie, which we'll get into in a moment. And they're very childlike. They're watching this violence, and these are all elitist people who are in the elite class and, these high-quality escorts or wherever they are, right? And they're all just completely digging this violence porn on their big screen TV. I stopped it there, but they get even more childish in a moment. Their reactions. And then he gets the news from his trainer who's done some investigation, and he figures out this.
They're even after the old man because he didn't get your retirement announced tonight.
How come they put the program on without it?
I think they had to. They didn't want to. It's very tricky. Jonathan, there's one thing you ought to know. Look, nobody said it. But I'm sure of it. Jonathan. All the way to the top they are.
And so then he's going to meet with the big guy, boss, who, explains this even more, right?
Your situation, Jonathan, and your needs. Now you have to consider mine and ours.
I'm considering it, Mr. Bartholomew.
No player is greater than the game itself. It's a significant game in a number of ways. The velocities of the ball, the awful physics of the track, in the middle of it all, men playing by an odd set of rules. It's not a game a man is supposed to grow strong in, Jonathan. You appreciate that, don't you?
More and more, Mr. Bartholomew.
So this scene cuts back and forth between the conversation between Jonathan and the boss and these dopes going out and shooting trees. We'll see in a second. But he's saying that this game is not for individual success, but for parity and, people to release their violence, and no person's supposed to succeed. He's like a Tom Brady GOAT-like player who's transcended the game and has risen up, and they're scared of him because of that, because it represents a window back to the old ways.
Take good advice. You're not to play against Tokyo. You're not to play again.
I want some concessions.
Concessions? Believe me, I'd be happy to talk a deal, Jonathan. I love deals. But this situation is much, much simpler. This multivision event tonight was very embarrassing for me and for others.
It might be I won't ever find out why I've been asked to leave the game. But I do know I can get some concessions, and I want them.
So this is more of the idiocracy, right? So there's people who don't read. They're all on drugs all the time on these pills, and they have, no wars, and everything's run by corporations, and everybody's, Brave New World Soma, the drug in Brave New World Soma'd out. You could look at this as OxyContin or something like this, right? And they're just immature and just really goofy.
I want to see Ella, my wife. Arrange it so I can see her again.
That's not easy, Jonathan.
I want other concessions too, Mr. Bartholomew.
This was Jonathan's last hoe. He kicked her out of his ranch, whatever he has, right?
Specifically, you're bargaining for the right to stay in a horrible social spectacle. It has its purposes. You've served those purposes brilliantly.
So there's 2 games left in the season against New York and Japan and New York, right? And they don't want him to play. And so they changed the rules. And so the game for Japan, the rules are there's no penalties, so you can do whatever you want, anything goes, and limited substitutions. And they're trying to make it more dangerous and take him out or whatever happens, right? And so he has this, big doofus he's hanging out with who's sort of like his buddy and a few other players on the team, and they get taken out during the game in Japan. Here's the scene. It's kind of funny. So this is the rigging of the game, right? And a lot of this stuff, has unfolded. Obviously, they couldn't do it justice here with their limited technology and things, but much of what they're saying and the sort of the narrative here has come true. So this is the world's first Zoom call.
In my opinion, we are confronted here with something of a situation. Otherwise, I would not have presumed to take up your time. Once again, it concerns the case of Jonathan E. We know we don't want anything extraordinary to happen to Jonathan. We've already agreed on that. No accidents, nothing unnatural. The game was created to demonstrate the futility of individual effort. Let the game do its work. If the Energy Corporation has done all it can, and if a champion defeats the meaning which the game was designed, then he must lose. I hope you agree with my reasoning.
Okay, so this is the world's first Zoom call. Like I said. What he's saying here is this game was designed so that there would be parity, right? That no team would dominate, no player would dominate, and they would, see people dying all the time here. Their favorite players or whatever, they wouldn't last. Jonathan's lasted 10 years. It's the longest anyone's played the game, which means he didn't start till he was like 35 because he's like 45 in this movie. But anyways, this is all very interesting. And, everything that we kind of understand now, that the corporate lords and the, system and the beast and the way they're moving to Agenda 31, where you're just a cog in the wheel, and individuality and individual freedoms are, no longer important or, attainable or available.
You see, he's supposed to tell us where things are and what they might possibly mean.
Look, Cyril, a visitor. Jonathan E., Rollerball champion. You filed away a lot of data on him. Do you remember? Does it answer you? Oh, yes, it speaks.
So again, an English guy here. This is some sort of AI bot that has stored all the knowledge of, book knowledge and all these things. And it just deleted the 18th century, which this guy was lamenting. Because it just said, F it, I don't, the 18th century wasn't important. And it's glitching out, right? It's unresponsive. So they predicted AI bots and AI bots glitching out and, doing their own thing.
It finds things and loses them and confuses itself. Ask anything. He'll find it for you. Section unlocked. Won't you, Zero?
All right. I'd like some information about corporate decisions, how they're made and who makes them.
Theodore, you heard the question. Answer him.
Negative.
You don't have to give him a full political briefing.
So first of all, the AI bot, they've lost control of it like it's happened now, where the AI technology is doing whatever it wants. It's learning and making its own choices to the exasperation of their handlers, right?
Answer.
Negative.
This is Jonathan E. He has to know. Make it simple. Answer.
Corporate decisions are made by corporate executives. Corporate executives make corporate
I know we have the
decisions.
answers. We do have.
Knowledge converts
They're
to
the waters
power.
of history.
Energy equals
Oh.
genius.
Me.
Power is
I
knowledge.
want a bullet for you.
Genius is energy. Corporate entities control all fundamental elements of economic life.
So it starts glitching out, right? The whole system's falling apart.
Technology, capital
laybacks and markets. Corporate decisions are made by corporate executives. The 17th century is negative, 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 negative.
In any era, when your AI bot glitches out, it's best to start kicking it, right? Kicking the boop out of it, right? Again, with the color red there.
A lot of things I want to talk to you about.
They send back his wife that the corporation's ordered her to leave and go with this other guy. She now has a kid, and she's sent back here to basically convince him to quit. And there's this epic discussion. This is maybe the biggest thing in the movie in terms of everything here.
It's like people had a choice a long time ago between having all them nice things or freedom. Of course, they chose comfort.
But comfort is freedom. It always has been. The whole history of civilization is a struggle against poverty and need.
No, that's not it. That's never been it. I mean, them privileges just buy us off.
I fast forward through a lot of the movie. It's actually a pretty good movie. I enjoyed it from something I saw when I was younger, and in terms of the context here. It's dated, but it's you can't help that. They couldn't see into the future and make things better than they had the possibility of making them. And like I said, you gotta fast. You don't want to sit. I didn't want to sit through 2 corporate anthems and things like that, right? But him saying this, I've talked about this before, when people were lured or forced off the farm and gave up their ancestral skills to depend on the beastly system, which we've all become dependent on it, as the system is starting to glitch out and freak out. I mean, they got a lot of things right here, considering they're, whatever, it's part of a plan, predictive program, whatever you want to say. But people gave up their individual freedoms for comforts, right? For, having the security of a system, an organization, a government, a monetary system. But, it's clipped everybody's nuts, so to speak, right?
Just like that, huh?
But you've got to do it now. You've got to before it's too late, whether you want to or not. Look, Johnny. The next game, there won't be any substitutions allowed. And no time limit. You'll die, Johnny. Everybody will die.
No time limit, they tell you that?
Yes.
They tell you to come here and convince me to quit?
Yes, but that isn't why I came here. You have to get out for your own sake.
So there's a lot there. She is saying they changed the rules so that, again, rigging the system, so there's no time limit in the game, which means there'll be a last man standing type of situation. Or, few people on one team, right? After it's a fight to the death. And that's how they've made the rules. So there are no rules, no substitutions, and there's no time limit. So the game goes until there's one of the 2 teams is gone, right? And, this idea that they sent her over to convince them, and, how much pressure they're putting, how much control they're putting together. I mean, it's very, it's getting a lot of things right, like I said.
You're the only person I ever wanted. As long as you're on my side, that's all.
So this is interesting because he's been basically, stalking her on these videos. He has all these videos of her, and he keeps on playing them over and over again. He admits that he went to her house one time and stood outside, right, because he just can't deal with the fact that they took her away from him. And now he's, banning her, erasing her from his social media account. He's getting rid of all his videos of her and moving on because, he feels like she's betrayed him. And this is his last sort of attachment to the world, right? He's lost his friends and, they're taking his rollerball brawl away from him. Again, getting another sort of technological thing right here. So here he is wearing his number 6 again. This 6 is so prevalent in the movie. And his teammates are all like, with their Illuminati pyramids, capstones, and they're all like, hey, we're going out there to die, right? There's a guy with 11 on his shirt, right? There's significance behind that. And also number 9 is bathed in red. He's entering into this hell-like, red-like hallway. So they're in New York City playing the New York team with no rules in this death match, and the audience is screaming Jonathan's name even though he's on another team because of the individuality thing. They got these huge satellite dishes, which I didn't even know they had back then, and they show some of these modern day buildings and things. And then I found this part really interesting. And so whatever structure that is. And then they're going to go to something that looks like the Twin Towers, but it's not that, right? And they're going to go over here to the Empire State Building, where you should be able to, Manhattan, where you should be able to see the Twin Towers, right? And so the Twin Towers were already up and inaugurated in 1973. And they were being built, for years before that. And so they knew that that would be a part of the New York skyline, right? They would dominate. They were the world's tallest buildings. And yet they chose not to put them in. And then in what they were predicting 2019 would be, 18 would be like, right? So I found that interesting. So it's the end of the game. You can see the fires of hell burning the corporate executive, which is interesting, right? Of course, it's, none of this was going to happen because we know that individuality is going to lose, right? It's already been written. But there's a biker and another player left, and Jonathan, he kills both of them. He kills one and he spares the other guy. He stuffs the ball in the goal. They're chanting his name with his number 6 jersey. So it was, interesting. I got to get going here. I made the rest of the video. I just got to get it up here because it took me forever to get these clips in. And I don't need to explain it, but it was produced and directed by Norman Jewison, who made a lot of films. And I thought, I've seen something recently that he made, which I just happened to see his name in the credits. So I thought that was interesting. His last film, I think, was in 2003 or something like this. So this film was old. But anyways, this is Rollerball. Okay, so to go with all this and where everything's heading in the future, there is this, I think my wife sent me this. And Cleveland is becoming a 15-minute city like they're trying to do in England.
Mayor Bibb introduced the idea of being the first 15-minute city in the United States. He did this in his State of the City address last night.
The urban planning model is new, but city planners told our Sarah Shookman the time is now to tap into federal dollars to address some of Cleveland's deeper problems. Imagine a Cleveland where everything you need is less than 15 minutes away.
I don't even think there is a Cleveland like that.
This ideal planning framework where human needs and desires are accessible within a 15-minute walk, bicycle ride, or transit trip. And that's really what we're striving for in this new planning model.
City planner Matt Moss says it doesn't have to be a dream. Instead of a concrete jungle where people work and separate places where people live, in a 15-minute city, everything is closer.
And it's starting
and smaller, too.
out with the city we have now, and then asking residents how they might want their community to grow or change in ways that, again, make things more accessible or provide them with more opportunities to access the things they want to get to in their day-to-day.
Yeah, so they've had this idea, and we've seen it in London now. They have these zones, and you can't leave the zone and all these things. It's going to be a little bit harder for them to implement this in America, but it is their plan, right? We've seen it over and over again. It was Agenda 21, now Agenda 31, and it's something that's been brought up at the World Economic Forum, that you'll own nothing and you'll love it, within the next, 7 years now. This is some Chinese invisibility cloth they have going on there. So that happened. Just disappeared. He's just a model. She dropped her purse. She dropped her pants. There's another thing. They had giant dresses, upside down dresses. Look, her shoe broke. The creepiest thing in Hollywood, in the entertainment world, or the whatever it is, the celebrity world, is the modeling industry. It's just by far the creepiest, most depraved part of it, even more than Hollywood. I mean, it's just really, and it's bizarre and weird and twisted. There's something else, like I said, I missed. Numerous people sent it to me, and I never got around to covering for some reason. But it's just, this happened.
And I had a nurse named Pearl Nelson, military. She'd come in and do things that I don't think you learn in medical school, nursing school.
They're laughing because it sounds like he's talking about like a hooker, right?
She'd whisper in my ear. I couldn't understand him. She'd whisper, she'd lean down.
He's just so weird. And you know what gets overlooked? How he doesn't have any ability to self-perceive or understand how pathetic and creepy he sounds, right?
She'd actually breathe on me to make sure that there was a connection, a human connection. She even went home and brought back her pillow from her own bed because she knew the one I had that wasn't comfortable. But I'm not joking.
No, you're lying. She didn't bring her pillow. Who would do that? Why would she do that? Why would any nurse do that? Bring her own pillow for a patient. I got another gaffe coming that I showed on my other channel yesterday, where he talks about being a white boy, right? Strange powder falling from the sky in multiple states. I'll just put this I'll read this tomorrow on my other channel, because it's both channel kind of things. Kendrick Lamar, AI voice tech could doom humanity, says Jay-Z's Studio Wiz. So that happened. And
this is my voice without the Kendrick Lamar AI voice filter. And
this is my voice with the Kendrick Lamar voice filter. Let it run, DC. Let it run. Wish I could go back to the beginning. Are they gonna go and fake a Kendrick? I don't know. They could never capture all my lessons. My objective simply haven't. In case you let get the message and pray.
I just showed this to my wife when I'm editing it, and she's like, "Oh, you're never going to be able to trust anything ever again," which, you know, it was already the case, and it was the beginning clip I showed you in the beginning of this video had everything to do with that as well. So, you know, they got it, you know, this is just going to get better and more, more detailed. I mean, if they can tell it apart now, they won't be able to tell it apart in the future. It's just going to keep on growing with the deep fake stuff.
I know real power when I see it. The Divine Nine. We're honored to have presidents, all the presidents here tonight. And I want to thank him. And by the way, you know, I may be a white boy, but I'm not stupid. I know where the power is.
Yeah, he does. He knows where the power is. Jojo Magoo, that's one guy who knows where the power is. He's one white boy who knows where the power is. You know, most white boys don't know, but Jojo Magoo does.
I may be a white boy, but I'm not stupid.
The kind of laugh that they just gave him was the kind of laugh they give for that character on every sitcom who's not the main character, like the Screech or the Latka or Jim Ignatowski on Taxi or Kramer on Seinfeld, like the weirdo character that's clueless and gets the big laughs. Like that's Jojo Magoo there. Alec Baldwin sued by three Rust crew members after pleading not guilty in shooting. New York mayor dismisses separation of church and state. Weird kind of thing that he said. He said that he can't separate his Christian beliefs from his public duties. Caused a lot of big, outcry here. And it will, continuing on, but he had no problem forcing vaxxers on or not rescinding the vaccination rule. The unconstitutional vaccination rule. Jenna Ortega and Audrey Plaza tried to deadpan each other at the SAG awards. There they are there.
I don't know why they paired us up together.
Yeah. I know we have nothing in common.
We should find the people who did this.
And curse their families and watch as misfortune follows their bloodline for the next 7 generations.
Okay, I see it now.
Woo, they're witches.
Here are the nominees for a male actor in a television movie or limited series.
Okay, and apparently she had some other issue. I showed this thing where she does a human sacrifice of a virgin, and where she hosts some award show. One of the many obscure award shows from Hollywood. Independent film, whatever it was. So here, this is the entertainment section of Huffington Post. Jimmy Kimmel answers Tucker Carlson's insult with a scathing new supercut. Daily Show guest Hassan Minhaj has filthiest explanation for Tucker Carlson. Stephen Colbert has a brutal one-word answer to Ron DeSantis' biggest promise. Jimmy Fallon jabs Ron DeSantis with real reason his book is a bestseller. Now, I would show you all these things, but I got, this video is going to be long as it is, and I don't really want to watch them. But I mean, it just shows you how bad they suck. Aaron Rodgers healed relationships, childhood memories during darkness retreat. Aaron Rodgers kind of was spoke up about vaccination stuff. But this is just weird.
The black. Mm-hmm. Not too many people I know have done that journey.
There's two choices the person has. Wait for the world to bring the darkness upon them, or they can go out and find the darkness.
Yeah, that isn't the two choices people have. You could embrace the light and remove the darkness,
Prepare for the inevitable challenges that the world brings.
And just kind of let whatever was going to come in. And it did. A lot of great contemplation around, how I show up in the world, and then I spent parts of a couple of the days imagining what it would be like to retire, and then imagining what it would be like to continue to play.
Boom. Captain America New World Order 2024. That's the name of the movie that's coming out. So that's interesting. They're doing this because the guy who was the Falcon is African American, and he's replacing the former Captain America, right? And so this is the New World Order, and this is the movie they're going to put out there. And they decided to embrace this phrase here, which has long been, well, after I'm done here, I'll run the montage from Herbert Walker Bush and the New World Order.
And since then, we established a liberal world order, and that hadn't happened in a long while. A lot of people dying, but nowhere near the chaos. And now is a time when things are shifting. There's going to be a new world order out there.
Out of these troubled times, our fifth objective, a new world order, can emerge.
We have before us the opportunity to forge for ourselves and for future generations a new world order. When we are successful, and we will be, we have a real chance at this new world order.
It is a big idea, a new world order. Now we can see a new world coming into view. A world in which there is the very real prospect of a new world order.
There's two major flaws, and one is, bigger than the other one. And really it's just the one I'm going to talk about here mostly, with the truth community. And so you can see from what I presented today, and there's so many videos like this out there, and all of it, right? And about how they have to tell you what they're doing. And they just do it now out in the open. The people control the system. And that, there is a secret and private and elitist group of people that make decisions for the masses, right? And the problem with the truth community is that they give ultimate power to these people and not think about God, which is, the biggest problem with the truth community. Because the more that we talk about these things, the more it's like these people have, they have godlike powers. And the second thing is that the people who run the system don't have a choice in what they're doing. Less choices than we even have. They have less freedom, and I would never want to do that job because there's, you'd have to be a bad person. You have to embrace the darkness to do that job. So let's cover the first part. That everything that happens here is allowed by God. God gave us freedom of choice when we come on a third dimensional plane of existence. We have the ability for, to make our own choices, and there's always only one right choice, an infinitesimal amount of wrong choices, which I've talked about in so many videos. And so, that's there, right? And, everything that's done here is done with God's approval or God's permission. God allows us to make mistakes. God allows us to, demonize and to pervert the divine universe, which is, so you always have to go back to God. And these civilizations that end up going in that direction, and people who end up going in that direction, end up being destroyed in one way or another. Because if you don't embrace the divinity in your right choice, there's only one way this thing ends. And so the society that we're 100% dependent on, and the people who run it, have already, activated whatever contingencies and whatever, divine responses. And it's inevitable that the civilization will collapse. And the problem that people have, going back to the line where he says you got to give up your freedoms for comforts, is that, they don't want to give up their lifestyle. People don't want to change. The biggest problem with human beings is they don't want to change. And so you have partaken of the system. you're as much a problem as the people who control the system, because we're all dependent on it, and we've all grown up and we've all been programmed for it, and we don't really know any other way. And those kinds of changes that we're talking about are just too much for most people. And the next stage is like a total loss of all these privileges and all these comforts. And so you go from one extreme to the next. That's how it always ends, and live a very primitive, survival-based, animalistic lifestyle with people being mentally ill and unnatural from the previous system. And unfortunately, it's such a huge shift. Not many people are willing to do it, and it's just too much for them, right? I mean, some people have to survive, but whatever. Like, I don't know how this is all going to go down as the system collapses, but you're going to lose things because you have to, because those are the things that they're your bondage, and they keep you from connecting to the divinity within you, and so they have to be removed, right? Everything that's taking people away from the natural path has to be removed. And so you don't have to think about the people who control the system like, they have to be taken down. I mean, this is the huge problem, that they can be removed and the system could be made whole, all these things. It's a huge, the truth community has become a joke, because it only leads to this one inevitability where you realize, oh, there's only one answer here, and that's the system has to come down. And once that happens, we're all booped, because we're not, almost all of us aren't capable of making those kind of adjustments to living outside the system. And all these plans that they are putting in place, we don't know how long it's going to take, but those plans are just making things more and more unnatural, right? And the more and more you go away from God, the faster the system comes down. And so there's no reason, like, the truth community doesn't really need to exist in the sense of, we need to know what's going on, but that's about it, right? And if you're really going to be honest with yourself, it's, how you've contributed to this monstrosity, this abomination. And most people just want to blame, the so-called elite, in air quotes, right? Because, it's just easier to do that. And the elite themselves, the second part, they are in charge of a non-natural system, and they're more addicted to it than anybody. And so to keep it going, they have to engage in more and more evil behaviors, and people can't handle the truth, right? The weaker people get, the farther they get away from handling the truth and being able to understand the fragile nature of their system. And so they can't, level with everybody and tell them what they're doing. So they have to do it nefariously in a secret way. So, exposing it is good, but, it's not the solution, because if everybody understood what was going on, and most people in the truth community don't really understand it, but in terms of just a little bit, because the system would collapse, because it's all based in perception. It's all based in that we believe it's, that money has value or whatever it is, right? It's the perception that people who run the system have power, and that governments are real, and they have, it's just these godlike constructions that people look at as being all powerful. Science, the all-powerfulness of science, the all-powerfulness of government and celebrity and all these things. But, Hollywood creating its own, universes, the power of the internet and the computer technology power. But all these things have existed before, and they, here and in other places, and they inevitably just devour the people, right? So, seeing these, how they projected everything in 2018 in this movie, and how weak and, dumb, and how, limited the people were, and, primitive mentally in this movie Rollerball is, accurate, right? It's the idiocracy of 1975. They're showing the idiocracy of the future. And they got a lot of things right, because, this is a predictable pattern. It's a predictable, set of controls, a set of, a system that goes against the divine order, where human ego manifests itself in all of its glory and then collapses. And the more I, see the comments and see where people's mindsets are, and, understand everyone has to go on their own journey, and I've been doing this longer than a lot of people. So yeah, where I was, people are where I was before. I can understand that because you have to go through it. But you only end up in one place, and that is, like I said, the system has to come down, and we don't have to take it down because, well, it's going to happen on its own. And so, what do you do with that time, right? What do you do with the time between now, where we are now, and when the system gets taken down, and or you lose whatever privileges. You have free time now, and you have whatever energy that's left in your as you get older and things like this. What do you do now? And for most truthers, they making bad choices, right? They just they get obsessed with looking going down the rabbit hole, and you're never going to find any suitable answer. I mean, I'm giving you the answer right here, right? Like you already know that they're what you need to know about the people who control the system. And so what, right? Like what's going to happen? Where do you think this is going to end? Like why are you wasting your time with this? Like there's truthers out there that's still making the same videos. Truthers that were around when I started, and they still make the same kind of videos, right? Talking about the Illuminati this, or Illuminati, whatever it is. They haven't evolved at all. And you just got a lot of dummies. And, the videos I used to make, they appeal to a larger audience. The stuff I'm saying here, turns people off because, you think you're doing something, just like with protests. When people protest, it doesn't have any real chance of change or outcome, but you're just doing it to be a part of a group and to express your emotions and express yourselves. I mean, 90% of the comments that people leave are just stupid comments, right? They don't have any value. It's just people expressing, people have to, feel community, and they have to express what's going on with them, or, but people have insights and things that are legitimate. You start seeing things, and that's cool. There's a consciousness shift, but most of it, doesn't have any value. Like what I cover here, in terms of, I mean, how much needs to be covered to show you that the system is effed, right? Like, and it has been for a very long time. And, you can blame everything on the so-called controllers, but, they're very weak people who have, they don't really have the ability to manifest things themselves. They need the collective group consciousness to manifest things and keep the system going. And they don't really have the power that people think they do. And once the system comes down, it'll just be, they'll be forgotten. Whatever achievements, whatever civilization things that happened, nobody's going to care who won the 71st Super Bowl or the, World Series or whatever it is. Like, no one's going to care who won an Oscar, all that stuff. No one's going to care about the achievements and the technological achievements when the system comes down. Like, it'll be, erased by nature, and it'll be forgotten, right? It's been forgotten before. There's been civilizations greater than ours on this planet, and they don't even exist. Like, you can't even find artifacts from it for the most part. It's just, nature just wears everything down and repurposes it, and before you know it, the memory of the thing doesn't even exist, right? And so you have to, like, be some spiritual giant and read the Akashic records to understand. The truth community has, like, just petered out, and because of the disinformation and the level of stupidity and lots of stupid people coming on board, and all of it, like, it's just all the infighting and just the bad. I mean, you could just see the way that people get into disputes, and the purity, the truther purists, and all these things, and complaints, and hostility. And I mean, you're already fighting a losing battle, and then there's all this infighting, right? I mean, just the truth community is like the snake that's eating its own tail kind of situation, because it's just another reflection that people just suck so bad right now, and there's very little that's going to redeem us. And as I've said so many times before, we'll just have to see what happens when the system collapses, and if people are able to, once the spell is sort of broken and the hold of the system is gone, whether people will be able to rise up to the opportunity that's before them to rise to a higher level consciously and spiritually, or whether they'll just, go down to the lowest level of depravity and animalistic caveman-like behaviors. Revert to a less, a primitive, human being. Anyways, we'll see. Only spirituality will save this world. It's Paul Romano, definitely born from the Apocalypse and the Ascension. Everyone have a blessed day and be grateful.